Battlefield 6 is a huge game, and it has a lot on the stakes for DICE, especially after canceling the support for Battlefront 2 and Battlefield 5. I'm Sage from Uplink, and today we're talking about why Battlefield 5 needs to be a success for DICE. Welcome to Uplink. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video from us here at Uplink. A lot is on the line for Battlefield 6. DICE has taken off all of their teams working on any support of the other games to dedicate everyone they have to this game. By everyone's expectations and what they've said, this game will be huge and set a new precedent for what we think a Battlefield game will be. But first, how did we get here? And I talked about this earlier in the week on our video about why I'm hyped for Battlefield 6, and you can check that out in the link right here. But today I want to talk about the bigger reasons why DICE needs Battlefield 6 to be a success. And we start at the beginning. DICE as a development team has done some incredible things with games, using the current technology of the era to push forward what we think a first-person shooter can be. As someone relatively new to the franchise, I have greatly enjoyed the titles that I have played. I recently just installed Battlefield 4 and had an absolute blast. And while it is quite sweaty for someone new to the franchise, it is still pretty fun, and the mechanics are still great there. Battlefield 1 was my entry into the franchise, and I still to this day go back and play that game, and will replay the campaign. And while many people did enjoy Battlefield 1, I think, especially after Call of Duty World War II and Battlefield 5, people are starting to get hungrier for a either current day and era shooter or a near future shooter like Battlefield 6 is supposed to bring us. With both Battlefield 5 and Battlefront 2 in the works at the same time at DICE, they spread themselves pretty thin on what they could accomplish for each game. When one game was getting support, the other was kind of lacking. So as Battlefield 6 was continuing development, they needed more manpower in the studio. So they cut everything in production and hammered down onto Battlefield 6. But why? Battlefront 2 was wildly successful and had a huge audience, especially before the cancellation. Battlefield is the series that made DICE. It is why we know them today. So while Battlefront 2 was incredibly successful, and I hope they end up making something new, or another company does at some point make a Battlefront 3, what they needed to focus on is what they can offer for decades down the line, and that is a new Battlefield game. After the subpar sales and reception, the CEO blamed it on marketing, but they were spread too thin for what they needed to do. Offer a single game that is supported and has all of the features that it needs to satiate fans, as well as offer a robust experience for new players. So yes, in theory, they could have continued working on Battlefront 2 and just kept on going with that cash cow that is anything Star Wars license, but for DICE as a company to continue working, they need to have something that they own and it is their game. So that's one of the reasons that Battlefield 6 is so important for DICE. And the next reason, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, Battlefield 5, while it's a great game, was a disappointment to EA and DICE in terms of performance and how well it sold. Now that's not necessarily something that we as gamers notice until we get to finding a lobby. If a game doesn't sell very well, that means not as many people are playing the game. And also, if it doesn't sell as well, they are less likely to continue to support the game post-launch. And we saw that with the cancellation of Battlefield 5 support, ending with a final DLC drop, and then everyone moved over to Battlefield 6. This will also be one of the first games that DICE is working on that will, from what they've said in interviews and what they've said as well, completely double down on the idea of next gen. While yes, it will support the current consoles, because why wouldn't it? No one can really get their hands on a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, so why limit your audience to that? They want as many people playing on their game as possible. But even with the support of the lower end consoles, the previous generation, we're going to see them embrace the technology that is as current as it can be at this time. So DICE has a huge opportunity to set the standard for what a next-gen first-person shooter can be in terms of scope, scale, and size of the battles, as well as the size of the destruction. Another thing I'd like to touch on, and this is not a strike at the developers at all, they're doing their best, and they are an incredible team, and I've loved talking with all of the developers I have so far. But the visual that we've seen so far with the launch of Battlefront 2015, the launch of Battlefront 2, and the launch of Battlefield 5, we've seen a disconnect between what they offer and the story around those games. All three of those games had some controversy at launch, and they all were made by DICE. And I don't fault DICE at all, I would fault EA. The world of gaming is growing, and the types of content game developers are making is changing. What worked for Battlefield 1 won't work for Battlefield 5 or 6. Battlefield 6 is going to be a very different game, or it will kill the franchise. There is no way it's going to be an epic success or an epic failure, and I hope it is an epic success. It really has to be, and it all comes back to the history of the franchise as a whole and where we have been so far throughout the series. Battlefield, and especially Battlefield 6, is going to be a huge part of the future of DICE as a company. What types of games they make and what the scope of those games is going to look like going forward. It's make or break time for DICE and the Battlefield franchise. For so long, they have been huge behemoths in the franchise, but after some hits and misses, it's time for them to show what a game by DICE, completely dedicated, is going to look like for the next few years, and is going to start their journey down into the next gen support area. What are some of the things that you look forward to seeing in Battlefield 6? And what do you think of the video? Please let me know, as well as how you've been liking the Battlefield content. I'm super pumped. It feels like the era of Battlefront 2015 for me. We're getting new content. It's energized the content creation. I'm super pumped for the future. And after the lack of support for Battlefront, it's like, finally, we get something that we can grow with and we can make content for. I'm personally super pumped, and I hope that you all are as well. But yeah, let me know what you think in the description, and what are some of the features you'd like to see in a next Battlefield game. Please let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, do all the things. Thank you so much for being a part of this community and being so receptive to us expanding what we offer here at Uplink. Can't thank you all enough, and we look forward to growing into Battlefield 6 with all of you amazing people.